Hey everybody, it is Tamara from Moogly. Oh, now we're live. Hey everybody, it's Tamara from Moogly, and welcome to the YouTube Moogly Live for February 2019. It is the end of the month almost. There's only one day left, which is Crazy Cakes. As always, we are sliding into another month, but that means that there's been a bunch of cool stuff happening on Moogly for the past month that I want to catch you up on. And then I'm going to, after that, share some of my best tips today for keeping straight edges, maintaining your stitch count, whether you're working in rows where you want those straight edges or whether you're working in the round and you might be getting a little bit lost in those joins. So I'll have those there here for you in a minute. First of all, I just want to say hi. Thank you again for tuning in. And if you are watching, please do leave a comment in the chat or something so that I know this is working and so that I know the sound and everything's going through and so that I know you're watching. So thank you so much if you do that. All right, so before I get on to the tips, I want to do a quick recap of what's been happening on Moogly this month. Hi, Lane. Thank you. And Denise, thank you so much for chiming in. Oh, thank you so much, guys. I see the comments coming in now. Always good to know it's actually going out and I'm not just talking to myself in the middle of my office here. So thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you watch me on YouTube exclusively, then you only get the video tutorials for the patterns that come out. You won't see the other things happening on Moogly. So I always like to recap a little bit what's been going on that you might have missed. Now, one thing you have seen, hopefully, is the Final Frost scarf, which matches a hat I designed for Moogly last year, shortly after I started working with Red Heart. And this one is made with Chic Sheep by Marley Bird. And it is 100 inches long, but you can totally make it the length you want. There's instructions for that in the pattern. And the video tutorial for this one is up on YouTube right now. So you can kind of see it more in action right here, so to speak. Like I said, it's really long. I made it this long on purpose because I'm 5'8", and I wanted to be able to wrap it around twice so I could do some more fun styling options like tuck it in and stuff. Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. So anyway, yes, this is the Final Frost scarf. The tutorial is up on right now. And one thing you may have seen in the video, one of my favorite things besides the stitch pattern and the gorgeous yarn, is that these faux fur pom-poms totally detachable. I have a link in the written pattern for these. I found these on Amazon. They snap on and off. This is awesome because you can pop this off and then wash the scarf and not worry about, I genuinely don't know how faux fur would stand up in most washing machines, but also then you can change out the colors. Because when I got this pack on Amazon that I linked to, comes with several color pom-poms, so you can switch them out to match your outfits. How fun is that? Awesome. Yay. Thank you. Oh, Robin, you like longer scarves too. Awesome. Me too. Of course, now that I've wound it all over, I've managed to tie myself into the scarf. So I'll work my way back out of it here. There we go. All right. So then the pattern that came out after that was the Simple Home Basket. Here we go. And this one has a tutorial up on the channel right now too, if you haven't caught it yet. This one is made with new Red Heart Sweet Home. It is a chenille blanket style yarn. So you may have seen yarns like this before, but Red Heart has some really gorgeous colorways. It's a great, great yarn. I've really enjoyed using it. And oops, and here's the Chic Sheep that I used on that scarf. This one's in Mai Tai. You saw my scarf was gray. This is the Mai Tai colorway though. And I set this one out, you guys, because it's totally that coral Pantone color of the year. So check out Red Heart Chic Sheep in Mai Tai if you want some coral yarn. Anyway, back to the basket. You can see it's got this cool interior. It's got a little different exterior. That means 2 pieces, nice and solid. There's nothing in here right now. Nothing up my sleeve, honestly. And it is totally, hopefully you can see, standing up on its own. I love this basket. Tutorial's up now. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys like it too. So what you haven't seen yet was my final pattern for this month, which was the Cool Hand Pocket Scarf. Oof. And it is a big boy. Let me pull it up here. You may have seen I did a video tutorial for the, what did I call it? The Big Fast Pocket Scarf, which was a knit one. And then I had requests for a crochet version. So if I step back, you can see there's the crochet one. And this is made with, if I scooch my chair all the way back up here, there we go. Red Heart Irresistible. Great big yarn. I've seen this in Walmart, not this particular colorway. Alas, this one is the Shibori colorway. I wish the stores had picked this one up. It is so pretty. Check that out. You can get this one on redheart.com though. But anyway, so I used this yarn to crochet this scarf. And as you can see, great big stitches would call for my biggest hook. But who has a hook this size besides me and a few other people, right? This is a massive hook. So actually, this isn't even the biggest one. I must have, oh, here it is. This is the one. This big boy. This is the hook size you would need. So since very few people have a hook this size, although if you do, totally feel free to use it, I actually have video tutorials coming out right and left-handed tomorrow, barring any issues from our lovely host YouTube here. Video tutorials will be out for this tomorrow, and I made it with just my hands. All I used was my fingers and a pair of scissors. The buttons are totally optional, so I did use a needle and thread to sew that on. Obviously, I'm not going to manage to do that with my fingers, but the actual crocheting is all done by hand. So please do tune in tomorrow to check that out for the crochet version. Yay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Myra. Sorry you're having trouble. Yep, turn me up. Got a little bit of a sore throat, so I might be a little quieter today too. All right, one other thing I wanted to show you guys that went up on the blog this month, and there are no video tutorials for this, I'm sad to say, unless the individual designers decide to make them. But I want to make sure you guys know about the yearly crochet along. Every year on Moogly, there's a year-long crochet along, 24 squares, 12 inches by 12 inches, 24 different designers, not me. So they're other designers. That's why it's up to them to make the videos. But if you guys can read a pattern or read a written pattern, it's a lot of fun. I just want to show you some of the squares. We're 4 squares into it this year, so there's still plenty of time to join. This is the most recent one, and this one was designed by Lorinda Reddig of Recrochations. All these squares are made with Red Heart with Love. So it's a super soft yarn. It's soft, it's squishy, it's readily available in tons of colors, very affordable, machine washable, machine dryable. Perfect, right? When you have a big blanket like this, you've got kids, dogs, family, you might be gifting it to a family who isn't going to take care of your hand crocheted or hand knits the way you might. Perfect yarn for it. So this is the most recent square. Isn't that pretty? And then this was the third one by, this one was by Creation Crochet. Doesn't want to get in focus here. There it goes. There it is. That one's so pretty. I sort of based my colorway this year on Delft Pottery. This is number 2. This one was by Linda Dean Crochet. Absolutely gorgeous. But you can pick whichever colors you want. You can use your stash. You can totally do this as a stash buster. Some people do them as a temperature blanket, maybe, you know, kind of averaging the temperature for those first 2 weeks of each month and the second half. However you want to do it, it's totally up to you. And then this was the first one of the year. You can see I leave some of my ends to weave in there at the very end. But this was the first one, and this one was by Jessie at Home. She always almost always takes the first spot, which I always really appreciate it. I think some designers get a little intimidated being the very first one of the year. So that's the crochet along squares so far this year. We've got 20 more to go. So like I said, plenty of time to join. One just comes out every 2 weeks, approximately on Thursdays. So most months just have 2. Some months have 3. If it's a really long month, one of those, you know, ones with a whole bunch of Thursdays in it, then we squeeze an extra one in. But then we have the entire month of December. Basically, the last square comes out the day before Thanksgiving, and then we have the entire month of December to assemble the blanket. Easy peasy. So then you can have it done by the end of the year. Or if you like to take your time, there are lots of people who have been making squares for years now. They pick and choose the ones they like. They'll put together a blanket when they feel like it, maybe make a couple baby blankets out of it. It's totally up to you. Very loosey-goosey kind of, everything's provided, but you add your own touches and your own colors and really make the blanket your own. So I hope you'll check that out if you haven't already. Robin, I think I'll do a tutorial for the Cape Unfurls I designed. I hope so. I actually have the rights for that pattern coming back, so I'll be able to share it on Moogly as well eventually here. So hopefully at that point then I will also be able to go ahead and make a video tutorial for that. Let's see. Oh, good morning from Alaska. Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. All right, so anyway, those are the patterns. And those are the yarns. The other thing you won't see if you only watch YouTube are the giveaways. And I always want to point out that there are always lots of giveaways happening on Moogly. At least one a week usually is starting. This month right now, there's a few days left. You could win some Red Heart Sweet Home. I also have, trying to do them in order, but where did I put them down? Here we are. There's a shawl pin giveaway from, oops, turn that around there, Lickin' Flames. We'll pull this one out real quick here. This one is for a shawl pin, Patty O'Lucky or Pat O'Lucky. I meant to go back and look before I did this, but it's super cute. Could be Pat or Patty, up to you. Here we are. Isn't that cute? It's got a little clover on its rear end, and it's just sort of, you wrap your shawl around you and put it right in between, and it just holds it right on. Very cool. Perfect for St. Patrick's Day, obviously, or just any love, oh, the Irish. And I was pointing out this morning, Ireland has such a great connection to the history of crochet that I think it's just kind of a neat year-round little homage there as well. And then let's see what else. I have a giveaway going for the I'm crocheting iron-ons. I made a pair of socks that say I'm crocheting with my Cricut, and I'm not wearing them right now. They're actually in the wash because I took them to Stitches West with me this weekend. But I am giving away 5 of the already cut files. So this is cut on my Cricut. I've already weeded off the excess vinyl. If you're one of the winners, then you can take this plastic sheet, cut it off, rearrange the portions that say I'm counting in the yarn ball, however you want. So you could put it on your own socks, on a tote bag, t-shirt, whatever you like. So that's happening right now too. So if you don't have a Cricut, this is a great chance to try out a Cricut iron-on. All you have to do is the ironing on. Well, and the cutting and arranging, but minimal work, right? Super fun. Another fun giveaway happening. Stitch markers. These are from Copo UK. And she has a ton of super cute stitch markers on her site. These are the ones, I was trying to get these to show up earlier on Facebook. I don't know if I can get it to focus here. Oh, almost had it. Almost had it. Hopefully you can see it kind of come and go there. But these are little glass balls filled with confetti, which are so cute. And then there are these. Let's see if I can get these to show up here. It looks like a little tiny yarn ball. It doesn't want to focus, but I think you get the idea. You know what a stitch marker is, right? These are adorable, and there's beautiful pictures on the blog. You can see them. They have little lobster clasps, and she also makes them for knitters. So with the unopenable ring, I guess you'd say. The stitch marker itself doesn't open, which would be for knitting. For crocheting, of course, got to have the ones that open. So that giveaway is happening right now as well. And then the other giveaway happening, that I don't have anything to physically show you for because it's a digital product, is the Blue Elephant's Make It Happen pack. And this is a pack of papers with resources on sizing and gosh, what else? Like keeping track of your orders if you sell finished products, or working through a business plan if you want to, develop your own business. There's some really great files in there. And if you go on Etsy, you can get not only these super cute stitch markers from Copo UK, but you can also get the Blue Elephants planner packs. So I've got links to those in both the giveaways for those. Check them out, see if those might be right for you, and you might just win them on Moogly. So yay, hi everybody. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to think, is that my recap for the month? There'll be lots of fun things, of course, coming in March. I've got some new patterns coming up. I'll be using Huga Charm, new Red Heart Croquette, which is, oh shoot, where did it go? Found it. Too many things over here to show off. Red Heart Croquette. This should be out in Joann's now. So check your local Joann's. Of course, if it's not on the shelf, start bugging them. Say, hey, why is it sitting in back? Get it out there, right? So yeah, most of the Joann's should have been sent this by now. It's a little glary, but there we go. You can kind of see it sparkles. And these are supposed to retail for like $2.99 or something like that. I might be a little off, but it's like $3 a pop. So these are awesome. And they look small, but they have 239 yards of yarn, you guys. It's a number 1, so it's a fingering weight, sort of like a heavy thread, but of course it isn't thread, it's yarn. And it's got gorgeous sparkle. I'm super excited to give it a try. Not sure exactly what I'm going to make with it yet, sort of waiting on inspiration. But I'll have that. I will have a new hat pattern that was a reader request. And we'll see what else I come up with by the end of the month. So that is coming up in March. One other last piece of old business, so to speak, is that I was at Stitches West this past weekend. And I want to thank everybody who stopped by to say hi. I was in the Red Heart booth helping to check out people and show them the new yarns. We had Colorscape, Huga. What else did we have there? Oh, Chic Chic by Marley Bird, of course. And the new Amigurumi yarn, which if you haven't seen this yet, is so fun. Let's see if I can pull it back here so you can see. Llamas, mermaids, hamburgers, narwhals, probably my personal favorite right here. And each one of these cakes of yarn makes both of the projects on the label. The patterns themselves are free at redheart.com. They're not in the label. This label, it's not big enough to hold 2 patterns. That would be crazy. But You just take the cake apart, you wind it up into its little parts, and then you follow the written pattern on redheart.com, and you can make these fun projects. Super, super fun. So those were a big hit. I also wanted to point out, if you didn't get to go to Stitches West, or if you did and you wanted a little recap, I have linked to my new friend Z, or Zelda. She's got this great video. Actually, she's got a couple great videos that she did at Stitches West that have a fantastic overview of the event. And I've linked that in the link in the description, wherever it is, depending on where you're watching this. Follow that link over to Moogly, or just go to mooglyblog.com and you'll see the post about my lives today. And I've linked out to her YouTube channel where she's got those videos. So you can get an inside look at Stitches West if you've never been. I met her. She gave me this awesome Yarn is Life button. I met Crochet Luna. I've linked out to her as well. She's got an Etsy shop and she makes these super cute pins. This one says, "Crochet friends are the best of friends," which I love so much. So please do go check that out. All righty. So hi, everybody. Heidi, Jacqueline, Paula. So glad you guys have tuned in. Now that we've gotten through all the old business, let's get to talking about straight edges and finding those stitches. Now, this is kind of, I had a hard time coming up with a name for this because it's the same idea to help you whether you're working in rows or whether you're working in the round. Let me pull up my first swatch I've made here. And this is more of that fun Red Heart Sweet Home. And that's fun. I love this colorway. So I made a couple swatches here to demo with today. Let me get them untangled from each other. There we go. All right. So here I just have one row of half double crochet. Easy enough, right? I put a stitch marker in the very first stitch I made of the row and the very last stitch. It's actually the other way around. The very first stitch I made of the row and the very last stitch. And I also used a stitch marker in my active loop just to hold it open, which I can now take out to put my hook in there. There we go. That's the word I was looking for, my hook, crochet hook. There we go. I'll pull that down. So the reason I did this is because I have 10 stitches in this row. And if you're making a project, whether it's 10 stitches or 100 stitches or 1,000 stitches, making sure to maintain your stitch count is the key to having those straight edges. So if you're a relatively new crocheter, I think 90% of new crocheters, we all set out and we either make a scarf that's either single crochet or double crochet, right? It's just back and forth, simple stitches when we're just learning. It's a great first project. And also, nearly everyone, including my own, has edges that do this. They kind of take off in either direction, they're wobbly, they're all over the place. So what you want to do is avoid that, obviously, right? You want a scarf or a blanket or a rectangle, a sweater, whatever it is. If you want a straight edge, you want those edges to be straight. And that's where these stitch markers are key. Obviously, you can count your stitches every row, and that's a good way to make sure you're maintaining. And when you're very, very beginning, it's a good idea. However, as you've been going for a while, you don't necessarily, especially if they're short rows like this, or for that matter, very, very long ones, you don't necessarily want to count your stitches every row. So again, the stitch markers here will help. The key, whatever stitch you're making, and I'm just making half double crochet here for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to chain one. I know that when I mark the last stitch of that previous row, that is the first stitch I work into. So if I have a turning chain that counts as my first stitch, then I know not to work back into that marked stitch. If it's a turning chain that does not count as a stitch, like a chain one, then I know that I need to go right back into that stitch with my hook, right into that marked stitch to make the first stitch of the row. So as soon as I do that, oh, there goes the phone. I'm going to have to ignore that one. So as soon as I do that, I will take the stitch marker out and move it right on up to the top of that new stitch that I just made, like so. There we go. And I want to make sure that I go under the top 2 loops of that stitch. And one of the reasons I pulled out this yarn is because it is so big and bold and bright. And hopefully, there we go. The phone finally stopped ringing. Sorry about that. If we look at the top of each of these stitches, hopefully you can see there's a little V there. If I turn it this way, right there. So if you're a beginning crocheter, look for that top V. Those 2 loops at the top of the stitch are the loops you want to go into with your stitches. So when you put your stitch marker in, go ahead and put those under both of those top 2 loops, like that. And that will help you come back and find that space for your hook as well. Now, let me get my hook back in that stitch here. And another good tip for that, when you've taken your hook out of the active loop and you need to put it back in, you can always make sure the loop is the right way. When you pull down on your working yarn, you want the part that moves to be in front of your hook. There we go. So I'm just going to make a few more half double crochets across this row. Now, when I get to the end of this row, whether I've been counting or not, I will know that the very last stitch of the row is marked again. This can be particularly handy if you do have a turning chain. You don't want to accidentally end up working into that turning chain. That can be an increase. You don't want to assume something is a turning chain when it turned out to be a stitch. That's when you start going in rather than coming out. So these are the things basically when you've got those wobbly edges on your straight projects, your straight edged projects, I should say, that's because you are accidentally leaving off a stitch on the end or maybe working into the turning chain that wasn't a stitch. So that's why these stitch markers can be so helpful. I've come to the end of my row. Pull that back there. You can see I've got that stitch marked, so I know that's exactly where I'm going to put my hook, right in there. And then I can make that stitch. And then once again, I will move my stitch marker up to this new stitch. Just go right under both of those loops right there, like so. And this way, when I come back the other direction, then I know this is the first stitch I want to put my first stitch into, or it will count as the first stitch if there's a turning chain there instead. And I know this is the last stitch. So you still want to count your stitches every few rows, especially if you're just beginning. But I use this trick still to this day. I've been crocheting for a long time and I crochet a lot. I still will mark the first and last stitch of, depending on the stitch pattern, the first and last stitch of the row just to make it easier for me. So I know I've landed in exactly the right spot. So that is helpful. I hopefully. Yes, and especially for fuzzy yarn, you're right, Sally. If you have trouble reading your stitches, as soon as you've got it made, put that stitch marker in there, and that'll just be that much more help coming back. I know when I first started learning how to crochet, I didn't want to use stitch markers. I don't know, for some reason, I was like, no. It's another thing to buy. I'm just learning. I won't use stitch markers. So one thing I did do was I would just take a piece of scrap yarn. You don't want to tie it shut. You don't want to tie it in a circle because otherwise it'll become a permanent part of your project until you cut it out. But just a little piece of scrap yarn you can lay over that stitch if you'd like to. And eventually when you're ready, then you can upgrade to some real stitch markers. Probably one of my favorite tools besides the hook and the yarn themselves. I got to have stitch markers. Big fan. So this translates really well to when you're working in the round. Let me pull this little swatch up here. Again, I used the same yarn. And this time I used those pretty stitch markers because they're just too much fun. They're a little small for this yarn, honestly. You can see my plastic one, where did it just scoot off to? Well, it just scooted away. But the plastic ones I was using are quite big. And that's the nice thing too. These are Clover stitch markers. They do come in several sizes. So they have them for thinner yarns and for thicker yarns, which is really helpful with these jumbo yarns out now. But this one here, I've been working in the round. And it's the same deal. I've been marking the first and last stitch as I work around. And this is particularly helpful when working in the round because you're going to have typically a slip stitch join. And when you have that slip stitch join, if you've ever worked in the round before, you know how easy it is to mistake that for a stitch itself. So by having the first and last stitch of each round marked as you make them, you can make sure you don't accidentally end up working back into that slip stitch. And again, it can be really helpful. I had a lady write to me earlier this week asking, she was working in the round and she said, I have to chain 2 and make 2 double crochets in the first stitch. Is it the same one the chain is coming out of? Yes, it is. And if you use a stitch marker, just get that stitch marker right in there, leave it there after you put in the slip stitch join, leave the stitch marker in until you've put whatever stitch you're going to put into that stitch, then move the stitch marker on up to that new stitch. You'll always get that stitch in the right spot. So let me just demo here a little bit. I'll take the extra stitch marker out that was holding open my loop. Awesome. Let's see. All right, here we go. So I've got my stitch right in there. I've got my, stitch marker fell to the back. Let's push it forward. There we go. I've got that marked stitch. That tells me that's the stitch I want to join to. That way I don't accidentally, going too far in or thinking this right here was part of the stitch part that I wanted to join to, which is actually my slip stitch or my turning chain. That's the word I'm trying to say. So when I go to make my slip stitch, I'll go right into that marked stitch, like so. You can see I've got one in my last stitch now. That's going to be important when I come back around so that that slip stitch I just made doesn't end up accidentally getting counted as a stitch. So whether you're counting or working, it can be very helpful. Then I would go ahead, and since I'm just making half double crochets again, I'll chain one, and then I'm going to half double crochet right back in the top of that same stitch I joined to. Because my stitch marker is still there, I know I'm still in the exact right spot. So I can finish that stitch, and then that's when I would go ahead and take that stitch marker out. Like I said, these are actually a little small for this yarn, but they're so pretty, I couldn't resist. There we go. Anyway, you get the idea. I'll take the stitch marker out, and then I'll move it on up to that new stitch. So it's ready and waiting. As I come right back around, I know that's the one to join to again. And as I come around, like I said, now that that slip stitch is in there, I know that this is my last stitch, not the slip stitch. So that's where I love to use stitch markers to help me maintain my stitch count, make sure I'm not accidentally adding stitches, eliminating stitches, unless I mean to, of course. And it just helps me reassure me and really helps me stay on track because, you know, we've all been there. We get distracted. We've got kids, we've got family, we've got packages coming to the door, hopefully yarn, you know, all kinds of stuff. The phone rings. There's always something interrupting our work. And losing your stitch count is very easy to do. But count again every few rows or so. Whenever you feel like you need to check in, go ahead and count. Make sure you've maintained the actual count. But at a glance, you can use those stitch markers to really help you maintain. So that is my best tip for maintaining those straight edges. That's really that, and counting and practice are really what it comes down to. I know it's a really common question. So hopefully those tips have helped you. So let me take a quick look at the comments here and see if anybody has any questions. So hi, everybody. All right. Hi, Tammy and Giselle and Henry. And Chris, hi. Yes. Oh, yes. See, it's one of those things. I don't know why I was so resistant to using stitch markers at first. That's the funniest thing because, like I said, I'm a huge stitch marker proponent now. I absolutely love it. And in fact, one of the fun things I found out about Stitches West that I did not know, unfortunately, until about 2 days before I went. It was a very last minute decision that ended up with me being able to go. But they do a stitch marker exchange there. And I think that's so much fun. People actually make stitch markers, or maybe they buy them and they have a stitch marker trade there. So I'm hoping if I get to go back next year to be able to participate in that myself. So hi, everybody. Sally, hi, yes. Oh, and Adele, you saw me in Z's Stitches video. Fantastic. Yeah, Z did a great job just really walking the floor at Stitches, giving a great overview. So if you haven't been, definitely check that out. So thank you so much, everybody. All right, let's see. Myra, you love stitch markers too, and Chris and Laura. Oh, I'm so glad you guys love them too. So yeah, that's about it. That's my best tip for today. Of course, I will be back again next month with another YouTube live. So I always like to share, one big tip or something, an idea like that, something I can share. So if you guys have questions, this was inspired by obviously a lot of questions I've been getting, well, over the years, but it's ticked up again recently. So I thought I'd cover it again. But yeah, if you have something you want me to cover, let me know in the comments. I think that would be great. Let's see. There was two other things I wanted to mention. Now that I've been at Stitches West and saw everybody there, and it was super fun. There will be, I know, at least 2 more opportunities to see me, in public outside of the local Joann's and Michael's anyway. I will be at Stitch Up Chicago. I'm super excited about that. This one, I think it's the 3rd year for this event. It's put together by Michelle from 144 Stitches, but it's in Chicago. I've got a link in the description for this video, so definitely check that out, or you can just Google Stitch Up Chicago. It's April 5th and 6th, and I will be there with some Red Heart yarns to taste and maybe another fun project for everybody to do. We're still working out the details. Michelle's actually coming tomorrow, and we're going to get it all figured out, but I'm super excited to be there. So I hope you guys will check it out if you're anywhere near Chicago. It's a real quick event. It's basically Friday evening to Saturday evening. So you can stay there at the hotel in Chicago, or if you're local, you can drive in for the evening or the day, whatever works for you. It's just a lot of fun, and I can't wait. Let's see. Making sure there are any other super comments. Oh, yeah, Tabitha. See, and there's ways you can do it without stitch markers, but What can I say? I crochet so much, I like to keep it easy for myself. A video on gauge. Myra, I've done a couple little things on gauge. On one of these lives, I did go over the golden loop method, which is a great way to help you get gauge. It's all about pulling how you pull up your hook. I'm afraid I don't remember off the top of my head which month that was. But I think gauge, yeah, gauge is definitely a big topic. I'm sure I'll be coming to again and again. You want to crochet? Lucy would like to crochet a shawl with regular yarn. Go for it. You can use whatever yarn you want. That's the fun thing about crochet. As a designer, I design it in one yarn. And of course, if you make it in a different yarn, it's going to look a little different, but you might love it better. Just try it. Make a little swatch of it and see what you think. Let's see. Yes, Chris, someone's asking about stitches on the East Coast. There's one in Connecticut in 2020, I believe. If it's happened this year, it's already happened and gone, so it's off their site. But yes, if you go to, I have a link for, no, I don't have a link for Stitches West. I apologize. It's knittinguniverse.com/stitches, I believe. Or you can just Google Stitches Yarn Conference. Otherwise, you get some other stuff, probably like surgical stitches or something. But Google it. There's a bunch of shows all year. Looks like they're adding Salt Lake City is a new one. This was Stitches West. There's Stitches United. And like Chris was saying, yes, definitely there will be one on the East Coast next year. Let's see. Where did I get the cubes behind me? These are a mix, although they're all identical, right? They look very similar. Turns out you can get these cubes just about anywhere. I don't have the fancy IKEA ones. Some of them probably came from Home Depot. They were actually the Martha Stewart collection that they sold for a while there. They had the best deal for a while. And then I think some of the other ones were cubicles that I just ordered on Amazon. Turns out they all work together really, really well. So yeah, those are the cubes I use. They're actually, it's funny, if you can see the curtain, also from IKEA, behind the cubes, there's another layer of cubes behind that with the rest of my yarn. So it's sort of a double-sided wall. On the other side of that wall, I have most of my acrylic yarns, and that actually faces the kids' music room, where they have their piano and guitars. And now the middle one has started drum lessons. So this wall does double duty. It absolutely does double duty. It's not just my yarn collection, what I actually work out of. It is absolutely some sound dampening. I have to put it to use, right? Let's see. Oh, Alaska, Florida. I would love to come visit you guys everywhere I could. If I could just fly around the country going to yarn events, wouldn't that be the dream, right? That'd be so much fun. Beverly, you got a snow day. Oh my gosh. We have had so many snow days lately. I'm glad that at least 2 of my kids are back in school today after the colds that have come around. So let's see. Anything else? Any events in Southern California? I had a lady ask me about events in California. Not in California, excuse me, in the Yukon by email the other day. So I had to Google it. And there is a list of yarn conferences that I found online. I'm just going to go ahead and Google it here in another window and see if I can find that list again. Yes, I did. Excellent. So here's the site I have found with a very comprehensive, or at least a seemingly comprehensive list of events in 2019. It's knittersreview.com/upcoming_events . So if you just go to knittersreview.com and click on events in the menu, they have a huge list of events going on this summer and this fall and this spring and all of it, because it's only February, so for the whole year. So in addition to Stitch Up Chicago, I will be at the CGOA conference, that's the Crochet Guild of America, in Manchester, East Coast, July 10th through the 14th. Might actually be there on either side of that too. I haven't booked my plane tickets or anything yet, so it might be the 9th through the 15th. But the actual event is that weekend in July. Go to crochet.org. You can join the Crochet Guild of America. Check it out. Full disclosure, I am on the board. I love the Crochet Guild of America. It's a fantastic organization, and that conference is super fun. The marketplace isn't the big part, as big on that one. Stitches has a huge, huge marketplace. CGOA, it's a little bit smaller because it's just crochet, but there's tons of classes, and it's super fun. It's relatively, I don't want to say intimate. We're talking like 300 people, so it's not like 30 people. Stitch Up Chicago is going to be small. CGOA is relatively big, but it's not like 3,000 people either. It's a great chance to make new friends and meet people, meet the people whose designs you make, meet other hobbyists, and just have a fantastic time. And that will, again, be in Manchester. So that is on the East Coast this summer as well. So let's see. Bobby pins. Jocelyn says she uses bobby pins. Another great thing. I know I have bobby pins everywhere. So those can be helpful too. So let's see. I think, oh, you guys are chatting about some events, which is super awesome. Fantastic. Hi, Pinky Swear. Hey, I recognize your name. So yeah, definitely check all those out. Again, go to the link in the description. There you'll find links to Stitch Up Chicago and crochet.org and everything you've seen here in this video, plus all the other cool stuff that I can get a chance to show you, plus the Facebook video that I did this morning where I show off some of my swag and goodies from Stitches West too. So you'll want to check that out. But that's it. Otherwise, I think I'm going to go ahead and call this one a day, give my throat a little rest so I can finish getting over the cold with the rest of the family. And yeah, I will see you guys back here again next month, if not before then. Look for those new video tutorials coming tomorrow. And if there's something you'd like to see me cover in a YouTube Live, please do let me know in the comments. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day and stay warm out there.